A new phase of digital government is upon us. One based on personalized citizen experiences, where companies are rapidly adopting innovative ways to digitalize their processes and unlock new opportunities for growth. In this panel, our speakers will address the 4.0 revolution, the challenges it will bring, and how this period of disruption will generate value to public procurement. We are now pleased to introduce our 4 expert panelists to ignite your curiosity about this revolution.
Please help me welcome our 4 panelists. Guillermo Monsecchi, Vice Minister of the Ministry of Industry, Energy and Mining in Uruguay. Larry Giunipero, Professor of Supply Chain Management at the Florida State University. Isabel Rosa, Policy Officer in the Innovative and E-Procurement Unit of DG GROW of the European Commission. And welcome back to the stage, Jose Arieta. Thank you very much. To help us kick off this panel, we have Guillermo Monsecchi, Vice Minister of the Ministry of Industry, Energy and Mining in Uruguay. Guillermo holds a PhD in informatics from the Université Paris-West of France. He is also the proud author of the book, Learning, Scikit-Learn, Machine Learning in Python. As Manager of Development at the Intendant of Montevideo, he introduced free software, data, open services to the institution, serving as a recognized example regionally and internationally. Please help me welcome up to the podium, Guillermo Monsecchi.
Okay, the pointer? They didn't give. Okay. Let me see this. I don't know. Okay, okay. Hi everybody. I'm going to speak in Spanish, if you don't mind. I speak a little English, but not enough to talk, to express complex ideas. That's difficult for me. Muchas gracias por la invitación. Muchas gracias al BID por organizar este evento. Muchas gracias a los organizadores por toda la atención. Especialmente muchas gracias a la Iniciativa Latinoamericana de Datos Abiertos, que fue la que me invitó a participar en esta instancia. Y en particular es un gusto compartir el panel con compañeros tan importantes y tan reconocidos en estos temas. Yo vengo de Uruguay. Uruguay es un país en el sur, como ustedes saben, de América, un país pequeño, entre 2 países muy grandes, que son Argentina y Brasil, y con algunas características de contexto que me animo a contarles y que tienen algo que ver con lo que voy a hablar en la presentación. Veo que todavía están poniéndoselos. Algunos indicadores de contexto de Uruguay. Uruguay es un país que ha avanzado fuertemente en el tema de digitalización, es el país más digitalizado de América Latina, según el último informe de las Naciones Unidas. Además, tiene una conexión a Internet de más o menos el 80% de los hogares con banda ancha. Tiene una generación de energía de aproximadamente el 63% de su matriz energética primaria basada en renovables y alrededor del 98% de su matriz eléctrica basada en renovables. Ustedes dirán qué tiene que ver con esto, con la tecnología. Bueno, ahora lo vamos a ver un poquito más adelante, pero el primer comentario que yo quisiera hacer es que la tecnología incorporada en los países depende mucho del contexto. Tenemos que entender el contexto en el que estamos para ver qué herramientas tecnológicas podemos utilizar. Cuando hablamos de tecnologías disruptivas, a mí se me ocurre un poco esto. Soy un poquito a veces escéptico en este tema, ¿no? Como que en todos lados se está hablando de blockchain, de artificial intelligence, y muchas veces se está hablando con sentido, sin que se sepa muy bien de qué se habla. Está muy de moda hablar de esto, y eso tiene cierto peligro. Eso tiene cierto peligro porque puede ser que nos entusiasmemos mucho con una idea sin saber muy bien de qué se trata y luego nos desilusionemos. En la historia de la computación ha habido momentos anteriores de lo que se ha llamado los inviernos de la inteligencia artificial, donde todos nos entusiasmamos porque la inteligencia artificial nos va a resolver todos los problemas que tenemos, de todo, y al final no nos resuelve eso y nos desilusionamos mucho. Ha pasado varias veces en la historia. Lo cual no quiere decir que los conceptos que estamos viendo sean muy importantes, pero son muy importantes aplicados a problemas a resolver. Y ese es el mensaje más importante. Todas las tecnologías disruptivas pueden ser disruptivas si resuelven algún problema. En ese sentido, la charla que daba José antes me parece muy importante. Es, aplico esta tecnología a este problema. Que yo que soy el experto de mi problema, no yo que estoy hablando, sino ustedes, los que son expertos en compras, van a poder aplicar la tecnología porque son los que conocen el problema, no los informáticos. Entonces, y un comentario, a mí me gusta hablar de este paper generalmente cuando presento porque si bien estos son tecnologías disruptivas, son parte de una ola que probablemente pueda originarse en el año 1936 con ese artículo de ese señor que se llama Alan Turing, que fue el que inventó la computación como hoy la entendemos. Es decir, que generó los primeros modelos formales que dieron lugar a las computadoras. Y luego de eso ha seguido una cadena de, si ustedes quieren, disrupciones, porque visto a lo largo de la historia de la humanidad es muy poquito tiempo, pero son casi 100 años. ¿Sí? Es decir, con Alan Turing y su modelo de computadoras, von Neumann y su arquitectura de Princeton, luego Shannon y su teoría de las comunicaciones, luego aparece la Internet, luego aparece el sistema operativo Unix, luego aparece Google, luego aparece Facebook. Es decir, estamos en jalones de disrupciones tecnológicas que nos están llevando hacia adelante. Efectivamente hay una disrupción, pero no es una disrupción que empezó en el año 2015, sino que viene de hace muchos años y que nosotros estamos viendo las consecuencias. ¿Por qué hago esta aclaración? Hay que ver cómo aplicar ese tipo de tecnologías, o más en general ese tipo de conocimientos. Voy a hablar en particular de algo que por mi formación conozco, pero que puede aplicar a cualquier otra tecnología de la que se están hablando. La ciencia de datos. Seguramente ustedes han escuchado hablar de lo que se llama data science. Y hay una gráfica, que es esa que está ahí, bastante popular, sobre qué es la ciencia de datos. ¿No? Hoy vivimos con un montón de datos, eso no hay ninguna duda, estamos desbordados de datos. Y la ciencia de datos trata de manejarlos de alguna forma. Una de las formas de representarlo, como les decía, es esa que está ahí, que la presenta como la combinación entre la ciencia de la computación, la matemática y la estadística y una cierta área de conocimiento. Cuando hablo de una cierta área de conocimiento, hablo de una cierta área de experticia. Resulta que nosotros estamos preparando en la universidad en la que trabajo una maestría sobre ciencia de datos. Y nos pusimos a buscar cuál era la definición estándar de ciencia de datos y descubrimos que no había una definición estándar, que todo el mundo habla de ciencia de datos, pero no está muy claro universalmente qué es lo que es. Todos hablamos de que hay muchos datos, de que hay que aplicarle matemática, de que hay que aplicarle ciencia de la computación, y que hay que aplicar estadística, pero no sabemos muy bien. Entonces, trabajamos un poquito y llegamos a una versión de lo que es ciencia de datos que es un poco diferente a la que aparece ahí, y que es esta, que nos parece más adecuada y que tiene que ver con lo que estamos hablando hoy. Nosotros dijimos, bueno, ciencia de datos es la intersección entre la ciencia de la computación, la que inventó Alan Turing, la que tiene en la base todas las computadoras, los modelos algorítmicos para hacer cosas de forma eficiente, la matemática y la estadística, ¿verdad? A través del álgebra, del análisis o de la estadística mismo, y también, y lo incorporamos dentro de la currícula, la visualización de los datos. Es cada vez más importante en un mundo donde hay un montón de datos saber visualizarlos bien. Pero lo más importante, el cambio más importante entre ese modelo y ese modelo es que todo esto tiene que desarrollarse dentro de un área de conocimiento. Que la ciencia de datos no es una cosa abstracta. Es decir, nosotros tenemos que aplicarlo a los datos de un cierto dominio y para ahí es clave que los expertos del área de conocimiento, sea cual sea, las compras, sea la energía, sea, imaginen lo que quieran, sea cualquier actividad del Estado, necesitamos que los expertos del área de conocimiento se apropien de esa tecnología. No funcionan las soluciones mágicas y de caja negra que dice yo te voy a resolver tu problema de la enseñanza con esta aplicación. No. Tenemos que entender, los expertos del área de la enseñanza tienen que entender cómo este tipo de tecnologías se aplican. Toda la ciencia de datos tiene que estar dentro de un área de conocimiento. Entonces, lo importante es que haya proyectos punta a punta en la incorporación de tecnología. ¿Por qué pongo el ejemplo de Amazon? Si ustedes se ponen a pensar, las grandes compañías de Internet que hoy llamamos no son compañías de computación. Sus ingresos no vienen de vender tecnología. Amazon es una empresa de retail que ha cambiado el mundo del retail incorporando tecnología, incorporando conocimiento. Pero sus ingresos vienen del retail. Si piensan en Google, sus ingresos vienen de la publicidad. Facebook lo mismo. Salesforce, que es una de las empresas que más ha incorporado inteligencia artificial en sus procesos, sigue generando sus ganancias a partir del servicio que da. Es decir, la tecnología tiene que estar al servicio de un proceso. Y tienen que ser proyectos punta a punta. ¿Qué quiero decir proyectos punta a punta? Fundamentalmente cosas que partan desde recoger los datos, procesarlos y analizarlos. Necesitamos que eso sirva para algo. Porque si nosotros hablamos de Internet de las cosas y ponemos aparatitos por toda la ciudad que midan algo, eso no es un proceso punta a punta, esos son aparatitos que miden algo. Pero si no hay alguien que los analice para algo, en realidad no va a servir para mucho. ¿Y qué pasa en el sector público? ¿Cómo puede aplicarse estas tecnologías disruptivas o estas tecnologías nuevas, o como quieran llamarlas, en el sector público? Bueno, más allá de el evidente beneficio que da la incorporación de tecnología en sí en términos de comodidad, hay tres aspectos que me parecen muy importantes en los cuales las tecnologías pueden aportar al sector público. Por un lado, decidir mejor. Es decir, si tenemos más datos podemos mejorar nuestras decisiones. Por ejemplo, el ministerio en el que yo trabajo es de Industria, Energía y Minería, o sea que la energía es uno de nuestros métiers. A partir de la información de laboratorios solares y en conjunto con la Universidad de la República en Uruguay, se elaboró lo que se llama mapas climáticos típicos de 5 localidades en el país, que nos dice cuál es el comportamiento típico del clima en esos lugares. Y esa información la utilizamos para optimizar, por ejemplo, el uso de construcciones, por la cantidad de horas de sol que había o temas así. Es decir, y ustedes me ven dudar en qué es lo que hace, porque yo no soy el experto, los expertos son los expertos de energía. Los que saben para qué sirve esa información y para qué utilizar de datos son los expertos del tema energía solar en particular. Es una aplicación que nos permite decidir mejor, porque nos permite decidir hacia dónde van nuestras políticas. En esta zona tenemos que ir hacia tal tipo de energía renovable, en esta zona no tiene sentido porque hay menos sol. Y aquí vamos a ir por generación eólica, por ejemplo. También nos permite anticipar necesidades, y esto es fundamental y es una característica del machine learning, del aprendizaje automático. Anticipar las necesidades. Miren, y esto viene un lindo proyecto, ejemplo de proyecto punta a punta. Estamos instalando telepluviómetros en un trabajo conjunto en el Instituto Uruguayo de Meteorología y la empresa de telecomunicaciones de Uruguay y el Ministerio de Energía, en instalar telepluviómetros en diferentes puntos del país, en tenerlos monitoreados y además poder utilizar esa información para tomar decisiones que sean tanto para el propio sector público, para, por ejemplo, prever desastres más rápidamente, o también para el sector privado, por ejemplo, los ganaderos que pueden prever una sequía a partir de las medidas más rápidas de lluvia que hay en la zona. Esos son 3 minutos, está bastante bien. Anticipar necesidades. Y finalmente, la de crear mercados. Entender cómo la tecnología nos puede ayudar a crear nuevos mercados en el sentido de Mazzucato, en el sentido del rol que tienen los estados de crear mercados nuevos tomando riesgos. Por ejemplo, en Uruguay hay mucha energía renovable y estamos en ciertos momentos de la noche, sobre todo, perdiendo esa energía renovable porque es energía eólica que es muy cara de almacenar. Uno de los proyectos en los que estamos trabajando es en automóviles a hidrógeno. Es decir, con las condiciones que tenemos, por eso yo decía lo del contexto, dada la cantidad de energía que tenemos renovable para producir, estamos juntándonos la empresa de combustibles que está viendo cómo transformarse, que es estatal además, y que está viendo cómo transformarse pensando en incorporar hidrógeno. ¿Tá? Y ahí estamos generando nuevas posibilidades. Entonces, son esas tres: anticipar, decidir y también crear mercados. ¿Y para qué nos pueden servir, y con esto cierro, las compras públicas? Bueno, las compras públicas nos tienen que servir, entre otras cosas, para apoyar la innovación. En Uruguay próximamente vamos a estar lanzando un sistema de compras públicas, un subsistema de compras públicas que permita contratar innovación, que permita que las empresas del Estado o los organismos del Estado puedan, para este tipo de cosas, donde estamos pensando en cosas nuevas, donde sabemos qué queremos, pero no exactamente sus especificaciones, es decir, no es fácil hacer una licitación en algo que en realidad uno está prototipando o ensayando. Bueno, dar un marco para que proveedores privados puedan vender esos servicios a partir del diseño más que de una especificación fina. Y en esto se vuelve fundamental, como en todos los procesos de compra, por supuesto, el poder que todo ese proceso sea completamente transparente. Es otra cosa que me parece muy importante. Necesitamos avanzar para que este tipo de cosas se puedan incorporar más rápidamente a la matriz del Estado en transparencia. Porque cuando estamos haciendo innovación podemos caer en la tentación de decir, bueno, le vendo a tal proveedor porque él dice que es lindo, y eso en realidad no es así. En realidad lo que yo quiero tener que hacer es especificar mis necesidades, justificarlas, y a partir de eso, de forma transparente, permitir que se incorporen proveedores a esto. Y por acá estaría todo. Muchísimas gracias. Estuve viendo todo.
Thank you, Guillermo. Ladies and gentlemen, Larry Giunipero is a professor of supply chain management in the Business Analytics, Information Systems, and Supply Chain Department at Florida State University. Dr. Giunipero's primary research, teaching, and consulting projects and interests are in the area of supply chain management. He has published over 55 articles in various academic journals, as well as co-authored 4 textbooks on supply chain management. He has successfully completed consulting and training projects with over 45 different companies around the world. However, with all that success, his proudest accomplishments are his 3 beautiful children. He is inspired by his work guiding students to careers in supply chain management, and he is also driven by the opportunity to help young, up-and-coming supply chain professionals increase their effectiveness. Please help me welcome, for his presentation, Larry Giunipero.
Thank you, Roger. And thank everybody for, whoops, drop that one. That's always a good way to start, right? I'm really better than that, but got your attention. What I want to talk to you about is this study, Procurement 2035, that we partnered with KPMG to do. And it's more of a high-level look at where this field's going, which addresses a lot of the issues you're going to hear in the coming days, 2 days here. So what I want to do is sort of give you that overview. And if we go back in time, and Jose said, well, how many of you when you were in high school wanted to be procurement people, right? And nobody raised their hands, or even in college. Well, that's changed a little. I think one of my jobs is to train students for this field. We think there's a lot of opportunities in this area. There's a lot we need to know, a lot more we need to grow, but it's an exciting field for young people. So one of my jobs in looking at the future is, if you don't expect the unexpected, you won't find it, right? And this was said way back by a Greek philosopher, for it's not reached by search or trial. And that along with another quote from, I believe it was the CEO of Siemens, who said, 25 years ago, 50% of the jobs we do today weren't even invented yet, weren't even, thought about. And the second point was, what he went on to say was, and then 80% of the jobs in the next 30 years have not been invented yet. So, it got us all thinking about the future. So this study that I'm just going to summarize, it's a long study, and I could talk about it for hours, but I've just focused it down to a couple points. And I know that, since we're being an academic, we always like to invent new terms. So one of the terms we invented was dynaxability, because what we saw out of this research is that the ability to manage in dynamic and complex environments that you all are going to have in the future is going to be critical, however we define that. And so if you look at what we did, we had a KPMG and FSU, we partnered on this study. So we had a lot of years of experience in procurement on the research team. We did interviews and workshops. You can see public and private procurement, IT, production, data analytics, technology. And this resulted in a series of scenarios. And that's what I'm going to talk to you about today. We also did a lot of literature review, reading a lot of studies on the future, because I've been involved in several what we call purchasing education and training studies, but this was more of an overall looking at future and using perhaps futureology as a underlying way to look at this. So what I'm going to share with you today in the next 10 minutes are what we see as 4 scenarios. We also have what we call wild cards. We have underlying environmental variables, such as what you're going to hear, AI, blockchain, some of those things that underlie this. But these 4 scenarios, I thought for 15 minutes might be the best to share with you. So, and they're based on the age of algorithms and human centricity. So we sort of saw in these scenarios when we did them with experts, we started to come out with a quadrant approach, because we think, right now if you look at companies, we're all different levels of maturity. Some are very immature, some are world-class, but there's going to be a spectrum of how technology affects us in this field. So the first one is high decentralization, high development of technology. And here we say this could be the end of procurement. Like, we may not have procurement as a function. So better have your resumes polished up, right, if this happens. And, there's more robots than people. AI personality rights are implemented. Sort of like Musk believes that AI perhaps isn't the best thing for the world. And cross-industrial corporate networks are fully transparent, so our supply chains are fully transparent. Algorithms have replaced humans for information processing jobs. That's going on now as we speak. And almost all processes are digitalized and automated. So what that looks like is that then any tactical and operative task, and I heard somebody up here say that what we want to do is get you out of the tactical and operative, right, and get you to where you can really spend your time on what's value added. In fact, a couple weeks ago, somebody asked me to do an interview and say, well, do you believe that the chief procurement officer should be called the chief value officer? Because what value do we add? At the end of the day, if we don't add any value, what do we do in our tasks that give us the ability to maintain that and grow as professionals? Okay, so if the field's changing, and then in this scenario, what came out of that research was that why do we need procurement? The corporate network does this, and they're no longer made by procurement. But now responsibility of product management, and I work with a company that's sort of done that. They've moved procurement. They cut headquarters staff by 50%, and they moved procurement into product development, into engineering, into the field. And the corporate staff is like a shell of itself. Where it was 150 people, it now may be 35 people. So this is one scenario that could happen. The next one is we're the lead dog, right? This is what we all want to be, right? Where we have high centralization, high technology development, and we sort of control the keys to the data. You know, it's managed by humans and machines, so we sort of have coexistence with machines. It's a very likely scenario. You know, artificial intelligence audit committees, commissions, okay? And technology supplements. It doesn't drive us. It isn't the drive. It supplements. It helps us make our decisions. So this is a scenario, you know, I think most of us would like to see. I'd like to see that's the world our students and young people see in 20 years. And data analysis, IT competence, risk management are 4 key, and CPOs often come from the logistics procurement function, right? And supply chain integration and innovation and mergers, and us helping companies with mergers sort of drives this, okay? So in this scenario, production of many goods that have been outsourced to low-wage countries start to come back. 3D printing could change the nature of procurement. I'll be taking a supply chain team up to Detroit for a conference, and at one of those they're looking at, and GM gives us the case, and they're looking at actually using 3D printing for one of their brackets that's used in automotive, you know, in the cars, and they'll be bringing that back if they do that. So, you know, their technology can help procurement as well as perhaps hurt it. And then we're selected, connected, and procurement, and we've shifted from buying goods to buying production facilities in some cases. So that's 2. And then the sort of the 2 intermediary scenarios is high decentralization, highly developed human centricity. This is, and you see it in some areas today, some companies where, you know, purchasing is part of a project team. And we heard this in some of the quote experts, and in that, you know, in this project economy, there is a high interest in humans, and machines. You know, people were saying, well, they'll still take more of a background role. It won't even be equal. And technology sort of supports this more humanistic role of us with machines. And there's steady employment. Is quite rare, though, right? Sort of the project economy, like in the U.S., that's a growing trend where, you know, full-time jobs, there's more freelancers. And I notice it when, like in, like this interview, this person who interviewed me for this publication in London, he's, you know, he just does it freelance. He's a freelancer. He picks up projects here and there. And dynamic teams and work groups run our organizations, and there's no more silos, right? Everything is done by teams. So traditional departments don't exist, right? Dynamic teams rule. There's no longer a formal purchasing agent. And organizations are fluid and project-based. And we move from one project to another. So this would be almost like a freelance economy. It'd still be a need for procurement, but you would be in a project-type mode. A la the shipbuilders of today, a la, you know, some of the defense contractors who work on the project of like a F-35 fighter, and they work on that as a project. So, and procurement staff members have become freelancers. So that's the 3rd scenario, and then the 4th scenario is where we have high centralization and high human centricity. Okay, this is a role where I think maybe between the second one I showed you, where we're primary, and this one, offers a lot of opportunity for procurement in that, we've gone from a knowledge-based society now to innovation, right? Today we're probably more knowledge-based. I mean, somebody talked about information overload. I certainly suffer from that. And to a more innovative, transferring this knowledge to innovation. And how do we do that? And technology's become shy tech, taking a back seat to adapting to human needs and demands, okay? So here, then, what's our creativity? What's the innovation in this human economy? We're still using technology, right? In none of these scenarios, we're not turning the clock back. We're never going to do that. But there's a human interest. So focus on shareholder value to more of a care economy, right? Which maybe some of the politicians talk about today. It's taking care of other sectors of the economy that have been left behind. And employees have a high priority in that. And so in this type of an age, now your structure is as an internal agency. So we do have procurement. But the mission is to work with business, project, management and finance to develop these models and to create innovative companies, maybe buy them, maybe do joint ventures with them. But it involves managing this internal scientific network as well as the external scientific network. And I see some of that in some companies today where they're involving procurement more in like, well, we're going to buy it. Should we buy this company? Well, they're a supplier now. Should we buy them? Should we invest in them? Should we joint venture? How should we approach that? In the past, that was all done by finance and CEOs. As we've grown in reputation, and this is in the better companies, as they've grown to better help the company achieve its profit and growth goals, then we have a real opportunity here in terms of helping, what should that supply chain look like, right? And we know the supply chain is so difficult to manage. And all this technology is going to help us manage it better. But innovation is still the key driver. If you don't innovate, you die, right? You don't stay better, but you don't stay the same. You're either getting better or getting worse. And the companies in the future that innovate, and procurement has to then follow that and innovate. And if they're not viewed as back to value, think about value. If they're not viewed as a value adder, then are we going to get to those scenarios, or will somebody just replace us? And I think in that company example I told you about, one of the things they saw in procurement was they saw them as slow, bureaucratic, unable to process their workload to service that internal customer and then also meet the profit goals of the company. So, will we see a chief value officer? I don't think so, because in my personal opinion, everybody in a company should be focused on value. But if it sits somewhere, it should sit with us. Okay, so that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. Our next presenter is Sheldon Stewart, the Manager of Federal Procurement at IBM, and he has led the Federal Procurement Organization with a responsibility for developing procurement strategies which meet budgetary and other operational requirements. Sheldon has over 30 years of practical and leadership experience in manufacturing, supply chain, transformation change leadership, and procurement strategy consulting. At IBM, Sheldon was instrumental in bringing and translating regulatory compliance best practices to the public sector industry. Please help me welcome Sheldon Stewart.
Good morning, everyone. Let's see if I can figure out how to make the clicker work. Okay, perfect. So, as my predecessor spoke, you heard that procurement in of itself is changing. IBM, we've gone through our own transition in itself within procurement. We've learned that we have to change because the global market has changed. Our focal point has been speed to market. We transitioned our back office support to help support our procurement staff to more cognitive, cloud, and industry approaches rather than just basic human interaction, task by task. What we've done is we've understood that the new toy in our corporate kingdom is the agile approach, speed to market. How can you have speed to market while simultaneously complying with regulatory guidelines and also support your client without breaking the process? The years of taking a month to make a 10 quantity purchase, those days are over. What is Agile? Agile reduces time to market, it reduces costs, it reduces headcount, it reduces risk, and it reduces stress. It increases client revenue, customer satisfaction, employee engagement, and transparency and trust. It creates a higher quality and it creates a better culture. Agile accelerate digital strategy. Our strategy within IBM is digitized, as you heard me mention before. We have cloud as our back office support. We also have other items such as blockchain, which is a digital ledger that allows everyone on the chain to see all transactions from inception to closure throughout the entire process, to include fulfillment of the actual order. What transformation has IBM gone through as it related to Agile? Why change? Today, most organizations work in silos, okay? What we've done is we've become more project-centric. We used to be commodity-driven, where it took a long time to find out who owns my commodity. You may spend 2 weeks trying to find out who owns your commodity before you could even talk about order fulfillment. So by aligning a procurement professional with a project team, that one procurement professional buys any and everything for that given project. It automatically enhances cycle time right off the bat. In the past, procurement took too long. You chased the mouse in the maze, and you continue to push work. What will change? We simplified our structure. We closed out with our client, and we had end-to-end accountability. Our journey. Our journey started with client service. The client let us know we took too long and it cost too much, okay? We focused on commodities, we focused on process centralization, characteristics were complex, maze-like organization. Once again, it took too long to figure out where your commodity owner was before you could even get to the process of purchasing. So we streamlined that process by invoking the Agile approach. Agile, I don't think any corporate entity to date that I know of has used procurement as a place to invoke the concepts of Agile other than IBM. We're going through that process as we speak. We started in January. We initiated boot camps where we brought people in, educated them on the concepts of Agile. We went live in January, and we drove everything down to the squad level. I won't say we're perfect right now, but we're probably at 60% as far as a percentile to map to where we are with actually applying the Agile approach. Our mission was to listen for need, source, and speed. Once again, we went from a commodity-driven type approach to just simply educating our procurement personnel and assigning them to a given project where you would be buying anything rather than one thing. We had a cost takeout in that regard of a 30% savings. We had a cost procurement expense reduction as an entire corporate entity of 13%. And we had a simplification of 7% across our managers in the ratio, and 2 layers of reduction management. Lessons learned. We had pilots played an important role in our success of the rollout. We established a communication ecosystem early. We ID'd and trained Agile advocates. Basically, we brought people in and trained them on the concepts of Agile and sent them out as train-the-trainer type personnel to serve as advocates within the different squads. The need for transformation. What is that about? About 72% of businesses believe they are susceptible to digital disruption in the next 3 years. 14% believe they can handle it. Why transform? Long-term incremental transformation is not sufficient. Once again, we had an aha moment within our own entity, and we woke up one morning and said, hey, we got to change. We got to turn the beast around. And we applied Agile. We selected Agile as the vehicle to try to institute change as quickly as possible. Business as usual is not an option. We're in a global market more and more every day. The things you buy now more often are not just in the continental United States. We cross the seas, we cross many different entities to get some of the things we need. It seems like the things we need, especially in today's market, are more unique. They're not just cookie cutter, they're not cut and dry. Number 3, no rock left unturned, nothing is off the table. That's sort of the approach that you need to have when you're trying to adjust your procurement practice. The importance of data. 90% of the world's data was created in the last 2 years. 80% of the world's data is unstructured. 70% of organizations are implementing technologies that did not exist the last 5 years ago. Okay? In today's procurement practice, data analytics, robotic process automation, and artificial intelligence are the new toys that are going to become part of the procurement practice. We use them today. We still have people on the front line, but our back office support consists of data analytics, robot processing, and artificial intelligence. Some of you may have heard of Watson. That's our AI. Robotic process automation is part of our portfolio of products as well. Our approach, data enrichment, is a key part of our transformation. Spend analytics is part of our portfolio of back office support. Visualization and recommendations. We view insights and recommendations through compelling design. Robot process automation. We're not going to take a procurement professional and replace them with a robot, but we've learned that robots can do certain trivial tasks, iterational tasks, back office support such as quote analysis, price analysis, PO placement, PO tracking, invoice reconciliation. These types of tasks we can hand off to the robot while we simultaneously put the procurement professional doing other things like managing a supplier relationship, looking for price reductions, looking for speed to market, supply chain enhancement. How can we enhance cycle time? So with the robot, it enhances processing by 50%. With process compliance at 100%. Robot process automation blocked invoice. This is just a demonstration of what the flow chart represents as far as the robot actually processing, say, a blocked invoice. So it comes in on a report. APU, accounts payable, would normally be the iterational group that would handle that mission. With the robot handling it, it's done almost in the dark. You don't even have a person trying to figure out, do we have a blocked invoice? The robot automatically knows it and begins to process it. And at the end of the food chain, the invoice is processed or rejected. Deep supplier insights. 70% less time spent creating supplier assessments. That's one of the things that our robot can do. Part of our robust portfolio, we've also included a vehicle called Supplier IQ. Supplier IQ is a 360-degree view of capabilities, news, and financial benchmarking from internal and external data sources. What does that mean in layman terms? In layman terms, it means we've created sort of a data repository for internal and external purchases over a history of time, mapped to the market trends. So Supplier IQ is sort of something running in the background that keeps up with the market in conjunction with internal and external purchases already made. So when we get ready to make a new purchase, we can have quick speed to market because the data is readily available rather than someone simply having to pull that data together before you can figure out that you got a good, reasonable price. Supplier IQ provides a detailed 360 view and an in-depth company assessment. These are some of the documents that Supplier IQ will allow us to see. It gives us the trends. It takes us back 5 years in performance. It can give us a company's revenue. It can give us company spend, a company overview, company contracts, contacts, supplier contacts. It gives us everything at one time that you would need to go to market quickly with a supplier or assess a given supplier for a competitive type solicitation. Be confident you have the best deal. That's sort of what, at the end result of Supplier IQ will give you. So as a procurement professional, you're sitting at your desk and you know that the data that you have in front of you is accurate within market trends. You know that this has been analyzed appropriately, and you can make a good decision for both you and your client. You spend 80% less time analyzing prices. We in itself, IBM, we've saved about 50+ million in cost savings with using this vehicle. You heard me speak of AI, artificial intelligence, and the fact that we use our AI called Watson. We also have within our portfolio a specific vehicle called Watson Contract Advisor. Watson Contract Advisor works in conjunction with Supplier IQ, but it's specific to the contract. What does that mean? So what happens is when you're in negotiations with a contractor, we can literally go into our system via Watson and see if we have like contracts real time. And we can revert back to those negotiations to have a real-time history in front of us to see what a best practice would be to get through negotiations with a given supplier. We also have within that portfolio a predict risk assessment, whereas risk insights is a cognitive event, monitoring tools that save time and money by focusing on true impacts to the supply chain. We can monitor natural, social, and economic supply chain disruption. We can make fast, informed decisions. It's literally a game changer. IBM Cognitive Analytics Garage. Within our portfolio, AKA a garage, with the implementation of Agile, we've been able to accelerate ideation, we've been able to accelerate development, and we've been able to accelerate innovation. Key concepts. We're speaking of block ledger. I have about 20 seconds left, but block ledger is a very unique and fun vehicle. As I mentioned at the onset, it's just a digital ledger that allows everybody on the chain to see everything at all times, real time. So anybody on the chain can literally see what's happening with a given transaction from inception to closure. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, Isabel Rosa is the Policy Officer in the Innovation and E-Procurement Unit of DG GROW of the European Commission. Dr. Rosa holds a PhD in Governance Framework for Digital Transformation in the Public Sector. Dr. Rosa has also served as consultant for the European Bank of Reconstruction and Development for electronic procurement and teaches the electronic public procurement module in the University of Rome and in the University of Belgrade. Dr. Rosa is very proud of her work serving as chairman of the ICT Committee in the Ministry of Public Works, Transports, and Communications, as well as her success in creating the ICT Center in the Housing Department in Macau. Please give a warm welcome to Isabel Rosa.
Thank you. I would like to start by thanking the organization to be here today. It's a privilege and honor to be here in this space. It's also my first time in Washington, so I'm personally very pleased to be here. I have to apologize because I have a huge cold, so I'm trying to speak and breathe with my nose blocked, but I hope you can understand me. And before going through my presentation, I must say, just by a personal note, that I love the motto of the conference. I was reading the motto and the phrase towards the digital frontier is so Star Trek. I love it. I simply love it. I think we are in the right place. Okay. Starting with my presentation, the idea and the reason why I'm here today is to share with you some notes about the status of digital procurement in Europe, and also to share with you some challenge that we foresee in terms of digital transformation in public procurement. Starting with the beginning of the story, where we are, I would like to start with the concept. When we speak about digital procurement, when we speak about digital procurement, we are referring to the digitization of the life cycle. And the digitization of the life cycle comprehends the stages from the launching of the procedure until the payment of the contract. We are speaking roughly about 8 main stages, 5 for pre-award and 3 for post-award. In the slide, you can also find some red tags that I add, and they are related to the tools developed by the European Commission. The most famous one is TED, is the official journal where you can publish all the notices. And the ESPD and Disruptive, they are recent tools. The first one refers to the electronic service that generates the self-declaration, a structured self-declaration. And Disruptive is the online database where you can find all the information about exclusion and selection criteria in Europe and the means of proof associated. This database is available online and has information for 31 countries in Europe. I also had to this slide the milestones that we have in the EU directives. And you can see that from the green tags that from October 2018, we have mandatory submission for all the EU countries. And from April 2009, we're going to have the mandatory obligation of, for the contracting authorities to accept the invoices according to the European standards. This context has generated a very interesting development in terms of the EU countries. And in this picture that I hope you can see and read well, we have on the right side the identification of the stages of the life cycle, and on the bottom line, the abbreviation of the EU countries. And in green, if the cell is green, that means that this capability is available in digital way. If it is blue, that means that this capability is being developed or is partially implemented. You should read this graphic as this, if it is green, the capability is available. It doesn't mean that covers the whole country. We have, for example, the case of Spain, where you have most of things green, or all of things green, in fact. And in Spain, the central administration developed a solution or a set of solutions that cover all the phases. But at regional level, the situation is quite different. So we have regions that are more developed and some regions that are less developed, and they do not offer all the capabilities. On the other hand, you have the case of Portugal, where electronic procurement is mandatory for the pre-award since November 2009. So the green there means that is available for all the country, for all the contracting authorities since then. In this slide, the idea was to show you that this digitalization process really comprehends a very complex IT infrastructure, both at the national level and at the European level. The European level is very important to ensure the trade within the internal market and also to ensure interoperability, and is mentioned the tools that I already referred in the previous slide. At the national level, we have multiple players of different nature, private and public, and the numbers that I've highlighted there are estimated figures. We don't have exact numbers for that. I also present the dates for the tools that we are available, just for you to realize how recent this infrastructure is and the help that the EU directives have provided in developing the IT infrastructure in Europe. This I'm going to say more or less the same that most of the speakers already highlight. This morning I'm speaking about the fact that implementing digital procurement is increasing the availability of structured data. And this is very important for all the reasons that we already heard this morning. But I would like to highlight one point. This is also facilitating the interconnection of eProc systems with other e-government systems. That means that we have a higher integration within the public administration, and also the possibility of using new technologies that are based on the availability of data that we already discussed this morning. Those technologies can be artificial intelligence, machine learning, big data, and so on. So if we speak about digital transformation in public procurement, in Europe we have a main goal that is to implement the only once principle. And the idea is that if a piece of information is already stored or recorded in one system in public administration, the companies or the citizens should not have to request that to another entity. For implementing the only once principle, there are three relevant tools. One is the SPD, the other one is the CERTIS and the national databases. How it works is the SPD basically is the skeleton of the information we need. The CERTIS system has the mapping where you can find this information, and the national registers are the database where you can, where this information is recorded. To interconnect these three pieces allows you to automate the process of gathering this kind of information. And in fact, we have a case in Europe, Finland, that already implemented this in the, by the end of last year. And they connected 8 national databases to their eProc system. What they have done is they integrated their ESPD in their solution, and by using Insertis, they have a way to know where to gather this information. These 8 national databases they have already integrated are, for example, the tax authority database about tax payment, about social security, about insolvency. Here on the slide, you are seeing the information that is gathered from the tax department. The Ministry of Finance estimates time savings that would result in 2 to 3 million years a year. They have information in real time. They don't have to ask for these databases documents to the suppliers. They don't need any kind of stamps or signatures. And the cherry on the top of the cake, the information is stored in one single system that is there in a tender system. They have plans to connect more databases, and this implies that they also have to review some parts of their legal framework. When we speak about digital transformation, of course, we are not speaking only about implementing the only once principle. It's much more than this. I like to use a definition that is digital transformation for me is the creation of a new reality using new technologies. I just use in the slide one of the concepts that you can find online. And these new technologies are really much wider than we have spoken this morning, and they can be used in a very interesting way. We are at the beginning of this new era and at the beginning of this story. And in terms of the Commission, what we are trying to do is try to understand, not only in the EU, but also outside the EU, how these new technologies can be used in public procurement. Blockchain, we already heard a few examples. Probably I will not repeat again the stories that we have heard this morning. You can also have artificial intelligence and machine learning for having automatic contract structure, or even for forecasting needs, as we have heard also before. We already know about some practical examples. There was this very interesting case of a CPB that is using machine learning to calculating the needs and to order vaccines. I was not aware that ordering vaccines at the national level is such a complex process. José probably knows this better than me. So they have to order it 1 year before. They have to know which type of virus is going to have next year, the climate conditions, the peaks of the worst cases, a lot of variables, and they are using machine learning because they have structured data from the previous 7 years to foresee how many vaccines they're going to buy and which type of vaccines they're going to buy. In terms of augmented reality and virtual realities that can be used, we have not spoken about this morning, for simulating new environments in public works. And we also have some interesting cases of using chatbots in assisting contracting authorities and economic operators during the procurement process. So can you imagine in the future, maybe it's not the future, it's happening today, somewhere you have a kind of Siri that instead of having a help desk in your computer that is telling what is the next step in your procurement procedure. This is the possibilities, some of the possibilities that we found so far. I have a last slide, which is a very personal slide, and is the result of the experience of speaking with so many entities, with so many companies and so many people in the last year. I think it's very difficult for people to accept that change is here, is not an option, and is happening too fast. People are still thinking, oh, I'm going to do it only when I'm prepared. Okay, this is nice to hear, but probably it's better you move fast because everything is happening very fast around you. So don't think that you just need to concern with that tomorrow. In fact, you need to concern with change today. We also have to work together. I'm always emphasize with the people, with the organizations we are speaking and with the persons we are speaking that you have to work together. Don't lose time to reinvent the wheel. Don't try to do it by yourself. Speak with the others, with the ones that already have done so. I'm also emphasizing that there are too many myths around the dangers of automation. People are really concerned about losing their job, which is a very reasonable concern, by the way. And I always say, okay, your job may disappear, but for certain another job will appear. I don't know, and we have history to show so that for all the big revolutions, something was changed, was not lost in the way. The next point is for me a very dear one, and I'm telling for some people that are working in public procurement for 20, 30 years, they need to learn new skills. And they need to learn new skills because this is happening today. Don't be lost by somebody that is younger than you, just because you know so much. Your knowledge is something that cannot be transported to another person. Be aware that we need new skills. Younger people, as you know, my kids, my oldest son is 30 years old. They are born with these skills. I cannot explain how they know to do things that we have to learn with so much probably effort, but it is our case and we have to do so. The last point is everybody saying that don't go this direction because in the future we will have the machines taking control over us, and we have kind of these strange movies transforming reality. I am a strong believer that the danger we have in the process is not on the machines, is not on the artificial intelligence, is not on the technology itself, is what people will do with that. I always give the example, if we were discussing these kind of things when we invent internet, I don't know, 20 years ago, probably we would not have internet. Of course, internet per se is not dangerous, but you can use with a positive purpose or with a negative purpose is always a human decision. And with digital transformation, and with new technologies, this is also the case. Thank you so much for your attention. Thank you for listening.
Isabel, thank you very much. And let's give it up for all of our panelists. Thank you so much for these presentations. Well, we now have a little time for Q&A. We've got a couple of microphones up here. Just want to make sure there are no other ones hiding somewhere. So I invite you to please come up and ask questions to the audience, to our panelists. This is that moment. Come on up, grab a mic. Anyone else, you can begin to stand in line. Think of your questions.
Buenos días. Yocasta Guzmán de República Dominicana. Me encanta realmente este panel. Cuando vi el tema de la asamblea, no puedo dejar de decir que me preocupó mucho. ¿Por qué? Porque nosotros tenemos un énfasis muy grande en las personas. Y muchas veces cuando se trabaja solo el tema de tecnología, sin pensar en las personas, la tecnología no necesariamente ayuda a que ese camino se... Me pasó lo mismo que usted. Es para que no se sienta tímido ni solo. Pero me parecía un poco el tema de que la tecnología podía no necesariamente ser la respuesta a lo que las personas necesitan. Sin embargo, después de escuchar este panel maravilloso, puedo decirles que estoy cambiando un poco el chip, porque lo que sí veo es muchas oportunidades para que ese cambio que queremos dar, para que haya un real desarrollo humano para quienes más lo necesitan, pueda darse más rápido. Si la tecnología va en esa dirección, yo seré la primera abanderada. He visto varios planteamientos. Me quedo y quisiera saber si estará disponible con el que planteaba el profesor. Me encantó la propuesta y me quedo también con el que usted planteó, porque creo que sí a los compradores nos falta una visión estratégica. Una visión donde no impere el proceso, aunque el proceso es importante, pero donde sepamos que al final están las personas. Y en compras públicas de lo que se trata es de ofrecer obras, bienes y servicios con calidad en tiempo oportuno a las personas. Y si podemos hacerlo más rápido, con menos recursos, de una manera más inteligente, seguro que las compras públicas se apreciarán más. Muchísimas gracias.
Sí, eso
Pregunta
iba a
es,
decir.
eso era una introducción, pero la pregunta
¿Y a
es
quién?
cómo lograrlo, cómo lograrlo al profesor, cómo lograr que ese cambio que tiene que generarse en personas que, como usted ha dicho o usted ha dicho, estamos acostumbrados a hacer lo mismo siempre de la misma forma y a veces nos cuesta tanto cambiar, porque estamos detrás de un escritorio. Yo digo que parte de la magia tiene que ser salir de los escritorios, ir a ver lo que está pasando la gente y cómo lograr que ese tránsito se dé y adquiramos esa visión estratégica que tanta falta nos hace. Yo mantengo una posición y digo, y lo reitero ahora con esta exposición, que las compras públicas son la herramienta indispensable para que se logren los objetivos de desarrollo sostenible. No hay más dinero en los gobiernos para ponerlo al servicio de lograr esos objetivos de desarrollo. Y si incorporamos tecnología en la dimensión que aquí se está planteando, y me gustaría saber si ustedes, qué ustedes piensan, entiendo que ese valor agregado va a ser aún mayor y se van a poder conseguir realmente esos objetivos.
Larry, did you get that? Did you get the question?
Some of it.
Okay, so essentially, how can we make the shift from doing what we've always done to shifting to human-centered design and actually putting that into action? How do we get that vision out into the field so that they can see what's
How do
actually
we
happening? How do we make
upgrade
that
our
shift?
skills to
Yeah,
make it
so that we're not just doing what we've always done, but rather
right?
this human-centered design and getting to
Okay. Very good question. And if I knew the answer to that, I'd probably not be here. I'd be on a boat somewhere sailing. But just a couple maybe observations that I see in traveling and with different companies is that I think you have to have a champion or someone who will take the role to help elevate the function. Sometimes you can't do it alone. And whether that's in training, increasing your training, or increasing the resources, because, you know, as procurement people, we compete with resources with other functions in the organization. And how much of that do we get? I think Jose mentioned he asked for 250,000, got 150, right? How much of that we get affects how we can really elevate ourselves. So I think one is you being showing what value you can add, and it may start small, but building that up as you you know, progress. It's a journey. It's not, you don't just go from what we've been doing to strategic overnight. I think it's a series of steps, and it involves resources, and it involves getting top management or your supervisors understanding what you do, because many times people don't understand what you do. They don't understand how complicated procurement is. They think because they buy for themselves, I buy a car for me, anybody can buy. So everybody in an organization thinks they can do your job better than you can. And that's where we have to show them how we can bring value, I think. And we do that through working with teams and being able to elevate our status by showing real value to the organization's goals, serving the internal customer better, managing the supply base. I mean, it all rolls together, but it's not easy. It's a journey. It's not just a one-step process. And every company's different. I mean, I couldn't give you a cookbook. I mean, I'd have to look at your particular situation and then try to build something off of how you could best do that. Because all procurement groups that I see are different. There's some different. While we all do the same thing and we all have the same goal, there's difference in where we are today in terms of our skills, our resources, our you know, the value we add to companies. So it's a very challenge. That's why it's fun. Procurement's fun. And I think you have the best jobs in the company. You know, we just want to keep those and be contributors to that mission of the company.
Larry, if I could then turn that into something actionable, you mentioned it's a journey to be able to address this. What would be the first step on that journey? Now, you alluded to this a little bit in terms of getting to know the problem, the situation at hand. What might be a first step to achieve that, to getting to know that problem, to digging in a little deeper, perhaps in a more structured or scientific way to really understand the problem clearly?
Getting away from being tactical to strategic, is that the question? Or?
Well, yes, in terms of that first step, what would that first step be on the journey to complete?
I guess if I had to give one first step, it's getting your skill level up to where you're on par with everybody else in terms of what skills are expected to service the internal customer and still manage that external tie. But see, and again, I think that varies with the
type
you know,
of
with the organization
Mm-hmm.
and with their problem,
Yeah.
because the first step's different depending on where you are in the journey.
Well,
right?
and that's an important insight.
Yeah.
Jose, did you have something?
It's not about training. When we have 5,000 people, they're never going to give me the money to train them. To me, training, and I apologize, I'm just going to be really direct, is a waste of time. What we're doing is we're creating an experience for the employees. Mm-hmm. They redesigned our business processes. We built the technology capability to execute it in a better way. We gave them the ability to reimagine the business process. They gave us feedback. We designed a prototype. One day later, we showed it to them. They gave us more feedback. We redesigned it. We gave them an experience. If you want to learn something, go and experience it. Mm-hmm. Roll up your sleeves, dig your hands in, mm-hmm. and experience it. So sitting in a classroom and receiving training, you're going to recall very little. You're not going to learn how to execute anything. You maybe remember a couple of bullets.
I'll be the devil's advocate on that because I still think training's important. The type of training that we do. I mean, if it's experiential training, but we all have to learn and grow, and we all learn and grow different. Some of us see it, some of us want to sit and learn. I think we all have to grow as individuals, and this world's changing so fast, keeping up with it is, we need whatever you call training, if it's experiential, but we have to.
Whatever the method might be.
Yeah.
Isabel, I saw your hand up a little.
Yes, I just would like to add something that I found from experience. I think when we try to do something new, not only is important the person that we choose to lead the process, but also to explain to everybody that is involved what are the benefits. And this is about everybody going into the same direction. If the benefits are clear to everybody, then you can start to change something. Because if people understand they will also benefit from all the project, they will do it in a different way.
Well, Sheldon and then Guillermo.
Just to your question, where do you start? I think one of the key things is, you can't institute change for the sake of change. You need to understand what you need to change. So to do that, I would reach out to my stakeholders. You have external clients, you have internal clients, you even have procurement personnel. Check with those three entities, find out what the pain points are, and then that'll give you a direction of where you need to go.
And Guillermo?
I guess it's important for people to understand. I don't know if training is the answer, but it's quite important that people who knows their domain understands what the technology is about. If I told you, oh, you can use machine learning for improving this, that's not enough. Because if you don't know what actually machine learning is, what machine learning or artificial, whatever, Internet of Things, whatever, if you don't know what consequences, what kind of process, of what kind of changes you can do in your domain with that, you cannot go further. You just keep with the buzzword.
We put my son in two different types of soccer training. One was US-based, He's 5. They teach him each individual skill, very classroom oriented. You need to do this, this, and this. We put him in a class with a coach from the UK. He was a monster with a ball, and he was chasing the kids around. There's a difference between experience and bullet points. You want to transform something, give your people experience, come back and get feedback on what's important. Now they're training themselves.
Which is empowering them. You're providing them with the context to then empower them to pursue those the bullets perhaps on their own.
You take away the rules. You let them operate outside in a safe environment. You let them operate a little bit outside of the box, right? Because they're not doing anything illegal. And from the experience, they will learn.
Thank you for that. We have a question on level 2. I'd like to invite that person to please ask.
That's me. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much for the panelists. Very, very interesting and informative session. So I have a question regarding the private sector from the vendor side. If you can, and maybe Jose and Sheldon, if you can help us here to understand how do we organize the private sector to participate in this public procurement? What is the credibility that needs to be there in the registration of the vendors? What kind of governance structure that needs to be there to ensure that, yes, everyone in the blockchain trusts each other, the information available. So how would a public procurement specialist reach out to the private sector and to the vendors to ensure that this procurement intervention, this leapfrogging into the modern procurement happens and successful? So maybe from the US experience and from IBM as a vendor. Thank you.
So Sheldon said something earlier. He said engage your stakeholders, right? So the process of kind of getting an understanding of the perspective and experience of what's actually occurring in your business network requires stakeholder engagement. So as we implement blockchain, and we are fundamentally implementing it and directly touching our private sector stakeholders, what we're saying to them is this: do you guys like filling out the same information multiple times? Do you like repeatedly? IBM bids on, let's say 1,000, it's way more, but let's say it's 1,000 US federal government contracts. Sheldon, you like filling out responses with your financial information and your representation and certification information and your responsibility determination 1,000 times?
Oh, of course not.
Does that add a ton of value for you?
None.
None at all. So, and when we go with that message, we say, look, we talk to you, so we have experience and we understand your perspective. We didn't just listen to you tell us. We actually sat down with you and understand how frustrating and costly that can be. We're going to extend a node to you, industry partner. And we're going to keep an immutable record of every time you interface with us. And it's only visible to you. We're going to secure it so it's only visible to you. And you can reuse it. Now make sure you upgrade your financials. Because if they're not correct, when I check the IRS database, we won't do business with you. But you don't have to resubmit it every time. This is of value to you. We're speaking to them from their perspective. We're saying, I understand your experience doing business with us and how difficult it is because I listened. I engaged you as a stakeholder and I listened. And I took that knowledge and I created something that lowers that pain point for you and allows you to engage with us. Sheldon, that's how our approach was.
I would add, at least from the supplier perspective, your question is, how do you reach out to them? Well, it's a relationship, right? And just as a human being, any relationship, hopefully that you embark upon, hopefully you have a set of standards for that relationship, friendship, marriage, girlfriend, boyfriend. What are my standards going in? So you have a set of criteria that a given entity has to meet. To this gentleman's point, you can digitize it. That way they only have to do it one time. Then you have a copious record in the system about who you're dealing with, and you're developing a relationship on the front end. And you can revisit it as you go. You can set up iterational checks of the supplier once, twice a year, whatever. And then I would also have like town halls. Once you get you onboard your suppliers and you understand who they are, you have a set of criteria that they have to adhere to. You check them on an iterational basis. Talk to them. Bring them into a building. Have a town hall. Ask them how they feel, what are their pain points, ask them about the relationship.
And the way we did it is through the NGO community. We have about 10 NGOs that lobby the U.S. federal government on, as it relates to public procurement. We said we want 50 small, 50 medium-sized companies, and 50 large companies. We want to come in. We want you to tell us what your pain points are. We put them right on stage like this. We had our whole procurement community sit there and hear their perspective, and we did it over and over again. And that's how we understood their perspective to actually build that interface.
Very good. Oh, yes.
Yeah, I think it's a combination of both risk and supplier relationship management. But I think I also believe the pain points are necessary to evaluate, but I also think you have to segment your relationships between your key suppliers because they're going to require a lot more time. You're going to do a lot more innovative things with them than just a level that you have okay relationships with. But given that whole triangle, you still have to manage the risk. And how you manage risk, you know, in your supply base is real important today. I mean, because there's volatility, there's uncertainty, there's a lot of things going on. And we don't always manage that risk well. And that's another pain point. And I agree with Sheldon here is listening to their pain points. And, you know, we don't always look at how do we fit with them and how they fit with us. Like we may view them as strategic, they view us as tactical. That's not a good fit for a supply chain partner. So what's the nature, and that relationship changes over time as people change, and you guys all know that.
Thank you.
So.
We have another question over here. I want to make sure we get to that. I believe it's in the second row. Whenever you're ready.
Yeah, thank you very much, dear distinguished panel members. Thank you for your presentation and brilliant speech. I'm Hoteki, the CEO of National Procurement Authority representing Afghanistan here. And also I'm one of the frontiers of fourth industrial revolution in my own country. We recently launched the e-procurement with the financial support of World Bank in our country. One of the critics that always we are receiving, so one side is the good things of the digital transformation of procurement. So bringing transparency, acceleration of the works, saving of the resources. Recently we saved, this year just we saved around more than 12% of the allocated budget because of the e-procurement systems. But critics always we are receiving is from the labor market. We launched all these reforms in electronic procurement. So at a glance, more than 1,234 employees lost their jobs. So this is at the central level. If you're going to at the subnational level implementing the digital procurement or e-procurement in our other provinces, so it will be much more higher than that. So this is the critics always we are receiving. From one side, it is really much required for us in order to cope with the corruption, fight against the corruption, and get transparent. So we launched the system based on in line with the OCP, OCDS systems. But then also save the money for the government, which much more relies on the donations. We really need to go for the self-reliance. But from the other side, for the developing countries, maybe in developed countries, so this is not a big problem. They can transform their jobs to other sectors. But for the developing countries, so when a guy loses a job there, so then transforming his career into another sector, it would take a lot of time. It will create also some socio-political problems for the developing countries. So these are the critics that we are receiving. Right now, I just wanted to seek your professional advices to us in this regard. Thank you.
Anyone in particular that you wanted to direct that to first?
I also teach at a few universities, and we do consulting work around the world and creating business plans to raise investment capital, specifically focused on conflict regions. And you know, one of the things that I learned from that, and nobody ever asks about this, they always ask about the blockchain stuff, is the importance of kind of developing these critical skills, right? And I was kind of putting the pressure on training to force that discussion. It's not that I don't believe in it, but I do believe in creating an experience. And so one of the things that we did from the work creating these business plans through American University and Johns Hopkins, I brought back to government, is when we rolled out the blockchain work the first time, it actually reduced our need theoretically for employees significantly. So one of the things we did is we actually created a separate project that was in flight at the same time as the blockchain. So as we were doing the digitization, let's call it, we created a separate project where we actually created Harvard business case-like studies focused on critical thinking skills. And we said to our workforce, you know, if you had more time in the procurement process, what areas would you like to roll up your sleeves and kind of add more value to? And what we did is we used that not only to get them thinking critically and kind of educate them, give them an experience of what their jobs would be like in the future, we also did that to validate how we could redeploy them within our workforce when we digitized. And we kind of built that in at both Hopkins and American University into the business plans we'd write for entrepreneurs in conflict regions that focused on automation. We built in the idea that as you're kind of investing in this capability set, you have to co-invest in understanding what would you do with critical thinking skills if you had more time. And they're equally as important. This one's much more cool to talk about, and everybody wants to talk about the technology, but the critical thinking skills are more important. And if you build the Harvard business cases, you have the argument for how they can add value. You've also created an experience for that group of people that helped you build it. We're talking 20, 25, 30 professionals. And you can kind of redeploy them into the workforce to create a model to use the excess capacity you have in that way. And that's just the approach that we've been taking.
I have a question in the back that I want to make sure, so I'm going to cut down on how many people participate. Yes, what is your, do you have someone first that you are directing the question to, and then your question? Do you have a microphone, I think? I thought I saw a microphone back there. But, is anyone else with a microphone ready? Oh, go ahead. While we get that person a microphone, go ahead.
Okay, good morning.
Good morning.
This is Rajesh Shakya, and I'm e-procurement specialist, helping implementing e-procurement in different countries. Thank you, and the panel was really great in this morning. And thank you, Leslie, that she gave me last-minute opportunity to participate in this conference. This question, actually, I'm targeting to Deputy Secretary, Mr. Jose Arrieta. I know that the e-procurement implementation is at different levels in different countries at this stage. And in many of the countries, they are developing the e-procurement system in such a way that it can interact with the other government systems, as well as exchange the information. Just like the Isabella said, that this once only principle is also there already. But today, again, we are focusing on the blockchain. So just question is, why blockchain? Why that is, we are focusing on the procurement, how it can help. Typically, why we are focusing blockchain for the procurement domain. That is something I want to hear from Mr. Jose based on his experience. Because most of the countries, they haven't started blockchain, and at different level of development at this stage. Should they move to blockchain? Should they still wait? Or what kind of suggestions you give them? Thank you.
Yeah, so I mean, one of the things that I said in our talk is, you know, you focus on yourself first, your country, your organization, and the strengths and weaknesses of your organization before you make an investment versus mimicking some success that somebody else has had, because culturally, structurally, very different. So before you do anything, take an accounting of your country. If you work in Portugal, if you work in Spain, if you work in Bolivia, you know the strengths and weaknesses of your system better than anybody. So don't just try to mimic kind of what somebody else has done. I think why blockchain for me, blockchain gave me the ability to take 45 different acquisition systems and create a single immutable record of data without disrupting those 45 systems. Those 45 systems are still functioning. And then with that immutable record of data, I actually went through and I used artificial intelligence, robotic processing automation, automated machine learning, to actually rebuild business processes, one business process at a time. So the reason for me that it was so valuable is the $470,000 I spent on digitizing the entire planning function of our procurement life cycle, the entire planning function for 5,000 contracting people, it cost me $1.3 million to actually add 2 decimal places to a single application in my operations and maintenance environment. Think about what I just said. In our operations and maintenance environment, federal law in the United States required that we add 2 decimal places to a single application. To add 2 decimal places to 2 drop-downs, I had to spend $1.3 million to make that adjustment because our application interfaces with 52 other systems. So why blockchain? I took all the data off our application and I used something called a microservices strategy to automate one business process at a time. So now, on my blockchain, if you want to add 2 decimal places, all I do is turn off that microservice and in an agile way, develop a new microservice with 2 more decimal places. The checkout box in your Amazon checkout is a microservice. It never goes down. They always accept your order because there's 10 microservices that allow for checkout. And if one goes down, they just turn the other one on automatically so that you can always check out. That's why I'm using blockchain, because it gives me that flexibility. It may not be of value for all of you, but it's a very low-cost way to actually, we're using Hyperledger Fabric. It's a very low-cost way to actually create an infrastructure where you have flexibility to focus on one business process at a time really quickly versus digitizing the entire system. I'll have digitized the entire acquisition lifecycle of HHS by March. And there are other federal agencies in the United States that are trying to do that. It'll take them 2 years just to award the contract because they're trying to award a contract for everything versus one business process at a time. That's why I'm using blockchain. I encourage you guys to first focus inwardly. What are the strengths and weaknesses of your organization? And then on those strengths and weaknesses, how can we use technology to benefit what we do?
Thank you for that guidance, that very particular guidance for the next step. There's someone right there in the back with a question, and this will be our last question. So let us know who you want to direct it to and your question.
This is Farooq Hussain. I am Director General, Central Procurement Technical Unit, Bangladesh, the regulatory office, which is conducting the public procurement legal framework implementation and everything. And we are actually transforming our procurement to digitization since 2011. And now almost 80% procurement is conducted through through the electronic platform. Today's discussions actually focusing on data use, data importance. Some other issues are the agile approach or the supply chain management. And particularly from Isabella's presentation, we came to know the simplification of the tenderers or the bidders' involvement, how the hassle to the tenderers become squeezed. So no more verification, no more document submission. They become registered and they will be verified through data archiving. So these are everything is okay, but everything actually we are focusing on the processing part. It's a long time fight of the nations, how the selection of tenders become free from corruption, efficient, and through a competitive means, and consumption of time and cost reduced. So now we are going to actually achieve through the e-procurement process. But the second part is after award, the implementation part. It is still under threat. While the awarded tenderer, particularly in case of installation or constructions in developing countries, still the obstructions like before in the processing part is shifted to the implementation part. So how the electronic means we involve, though we are involving in payment system, and somehow the link from the implementation side to the procuring entity through uploading the pictures geotagging, etc. But it is not enough. So how the digitalization of public procurement, as the public procurement, we are meaning from acquisition to disposal. So in between these two parts, the supply or the construction completion through implementation of the contract is being digitalized to avoid this kind of new obstructions in the implementation part. I want to get the feedback from the panels. Thank you very much.
Does anybody, that's open to anyone?
I don't know if I fully get the question.
Actually, can you capture that, the last question again?
Yeah, actually the broad steps that you have mentioned in your presentation, the preparation part and the processing part, before award and after award.
Mm-hmm.
After award, the contract implementation.
Yes.
The contract implementation or contract management, we have incorporated in electronic system already. But it is not enough to mitigate the obstructions in the field level, okay, where the tenderers or the bidders going for construction or installations, yes, particularly in developing countries, where huge development work is going on. So we have overcome the problem in processing part, but not yet overcome the problem in implementation part. So do you have any suggestions to, in contract management part, to improve the bottlenecks or threats avoiding in the implementation part of a contract through public procurement digitizing process?
So we
have
about 30 seconds left, so if you have one suggestion that you could share.
Well, I don't have too many suggestions on this part. I know is the most difficult part is the post-award in terms of digitization of the process, and is where we have not so many cases where the countries have completed the full experience. But I can tell you something that I think really helps. I think raising transparency for what is happening in terms of contract management really helps to introduce the digitization. And in Portugal, for instance, we have making publicly available not only the information about the contract, but also the information about the completion of the contract. And for public works, this made all the difference in the world because it is publicly available what happened between the contract and the final payment and the final dates. And citizens are becoming more involved on this, and they are becoming more demanding. And it's not only citizens. The media is speaking about what happens with crazy contracts where you have awarded for 1 million and then costs you 10 millions. This creates a huge pressure for the contracting authority, not only to avoid this deviation, but also to have their systems in place, and also for the state itself to control what is happening in terms of budget management and financial resources. This is the experience I can share with you.
All right. Thank you very much. Let's give it up for our panel one more time. Ladies and gentlemen, next up on our agenda is lunch. That is going to be off-site from where we are. So in order to get there, you're going to go up the elevator to the ground floor, and there will be other people out there to help you, direct you to the restaurant. It is called the Hamilton Restaurant, not the Hamilton Hotel. We would like for all of you, in case you go the wrong way, we would also like to have you back here by 1:30 p.m. for our afternoon, the beginning of our afternoon session, and then we will begin at that point. I would like to also ask that the speakers for panel 2, Manuel O'Brien, Ramananthan Somansudaram, Ian McGill, Sandra Sinde, Trinidad Inostrosa, please be back by 1:15 from lunch. Take this opportunity to connect with each other, network, set up a next meeting, perhaps sit next to someone that you did not know prior to coming here today. Make sure you make the most of this lunchtime opportunity. We will see you back at 1:30 p.m. And in the afternoon, both of our panels will have at least one presentation in Spanish, so keep that in mind if you need an interpretation device. Thank you. I know, I have to try.